8 or 9. Not very many. But we're just going to look at these ideas, how this Enlightenment period came up with these ideas. Great philosophies that we still see today. These things we still correlate today. And even though these guys, did all their thinking and formed governments around this kind of stuff, we still back and forth with these same ideas to this very day. As where government, people, and all this should stand, society. Okay, so we're doing the Enlightenment. Here's the Age of Reason. Okay, so in this Age of Reason, back to the 1700s here, mid-1700s, mid to late. Okay, but they believe educated people could use reason and logic to solve human problems. Again, we're going back to those Greek and Roman philosophies that the Renaissance sparked up. Okay? Logic and reasoning. Sitting around and thinking about stuff logically. How can we make this work? Okay, so women started hosting social gatherings of philosophers, artists, scientists, writers to discuss these ideas. And these were usually rich, noble women in Paris. Okay, and these gatherings were called salons. Rich noble women would say, they'd send out letters to whatever leading philosophers or scientists or whatever it was of the day and say, hey, I'm going to hold a salon. I would like you to come join in the conversation. And so these people would meet and they'd bounce ideas off each other. Hey, this is what I believe. What do you think about this? They'd say, oh, I like that a little bit. I would change it a little bit. This is what I think. I think we could kind of go a different direction with it. Or maybe I don't like it at all. Nope, not a fan.
Sparks the Industrial Revolution?
No, the French Revolution.
Oh, not.
Yeah, we're leading into that. We'll do French Revolution next week. Industrial Revolution is not till the very end of the quarter year.
Next week is in.
My little time sleep.
Next week is in.
Yeah. So industrial come after the French.
Yeah. But next quarter.
No, it'll be right at the end of this quarter. Maybe not. I don't think that thing lines up exactly. But we'll do this, we'll do French Revolution, then we'll do Industrial Revolution, then we'll do the effects of the Industrial Revolution, and then we'll lead into World War I.
Oh.
Okay, but again, these are very educated people who have done extensive research, people who have done all kinds of reading, sitting around thinking about this, reading philosophers, right? Read a book and think a lot about it. Just look at history, artists, scientists, and writers. Okay, so this is the first time in history where they've really brought people in for this one specific reason of thinking and discussing ideas. Okay, we haven't done this since really Greece, ancient Greece. They used to do this in Greece, and it kind of went away for a really, really long time. So now we finally have, again, in history where people are getting together and really thinking about the world around them, whether it be the science, or government, or politics, whatever it is, and talking about it. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? You have all these great minds meeting together, trying to figure out how to fix the world around them. Right? These salons generally weren't huge gatherings. Okay? It wasn't like, they go sit in an auditorium with 100 other people. Okay? These were usually small things, 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 people tops, and they sit around and just talk. Okay, so in this one we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. And you have your two noble women over here that probably got together to put this salon on. The women would just sit in the side and listen to it. Okay, it was enjoyable. I love listening to people talk about stuff. I don't know, Elon Musk going to space and stuff. Same kind of thing. Okay, you get all these great minds together and just sit back and enjoy the conversation. And so that's what was happening in Paris. Cool stuff. We have 10 talks today and all kinds of other stuff that you can go listen to. Whatever it may be. I know a lot of TED talks kind of suck, but the concept of going and just listening to conversation. Okay, our first guy we have here. We're gonna go through a list of people and what they're. These guys all have all kinds of writings. You could read books that these guys wrote for days. And we're just gonna kind of put these guys in a nutshell and what they are most known for. Okay, so First off, we have Thomas Hobbes. Yes, Hobbes is a pessimist. Hobbes believes that people are naturally selfish and greedy. He also believes that people should be willing to give up some freedoms. Excuse me. Should be giving up natural freedoms to a strong leader in exchange for peace and safety and order provided by the government. Now, funny about that quote from Mr. Hobbes, that idea from Hobbes. Anyone know what Benjamin Franklin had to say about this?
No.
It's kind of counter to this. Benjamin Franklin once said, essentially, there's all kinds of different quotes in this, other quotes of this, or other versions of the same quote. Okay? But essentially, those who give up, or he who sacrifices freedom for security deserves neither. His actual quote was, those who would give up essential liberty, which in these days was freedom, those who would give up essential freedom to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Okay, so Benjamin Franklin takes a whole different stance on it. Nope, you should never give up your freedoms for anything. Okay, even if it is for a little bit of safety from, provided by a government or one person. Nope. John Locke. Okay, Hobbes is a pessimist. Locke is an optimist. Kind of believes the opposite here. He believes people are naturally happy and reasonable. Okay. And the purpose of government should be to protect people's natural rights. People should be governed by consent. They should allow themselves to be governed by whatever is established. Okay, this government should not be forced upon the people against their will. Okay, so Hobbes, you have a guy that believes, you should be giving up some freedoms, so that way the government can protect you from whatever it may be. Okay. Locke takes a different stance and says, no, that's not their job. Okay, the government's job is to protect your rights, your freedoms. Okay, it's not there to take away your freedoms in exchange for some sort of safety or liberty or safety or order. Okay, that should be the people's responsibility. The government's only job is to protect your rights, not you as a person. Okay. This is all on Canvas view, so if I go too fast, you can always go back. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau believes people are born good. He kind of takes a middle road here between Locke and Hobbes. And Rousseau believes people are born good, but as they get older, they are corrupted by society. The government should work for the common good. I think we can all agree on that. The government should work for the common good of people. People are born good.
Can I just write part of his name?
Yeah. Most people, you don't have to put Jean-Jacques. If you hear Rousseau, that's who they're talking about. This guy. You just put Rousseau.
They all have extremely long.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau, excuse me. Very French. So is the next guy. Baron de Montesquieu. Okay, Rousseau doesn't believe that everyone's extremely corrupted. Okay, he believes that there are shades of corruption. Okay, some people are not corrupted very much. They're corrupted very little, corrupted nonetheless. And obviously some people are corrupted extensively. Okay, that's what he's talking about is morally corrupted. Okay, morally corrupted. Not essentially like monetarily corrupted. Morally corrupted. Okay, Montesquieu believes in the separation of powers in government, checks and balances. Obviously becomes a huge cornerstone of what we found here in America. So these are all views on government, how they should interact with their people, their social contract with their people. Now, these guys, if you read through their books, super interesting stuff to read through these guys' books. Okay, and their pamphlets and all these other things. I didn't read a lot of this stuff when I was in college. You can read these guys for days. It's super interesting to see what they were thinking back in the day. But more importantly, Rousseau had some ideas that were way out there in left field. Way out there. Like yourself, you're like, oh, really? Are you kidding me? And Rousseau had ideas that were way out there. Hobbes had ideas that were way out there in left field. Locke even had some stuff that's like, what are you talking about, man? It's way out there. Okay, so no one's perfect. Nobody gets it right 100% of the time. And that kind of goes back to that freedom of speech. Okay? Just because they have ideas that are out there way out in left field, imagine, even like Alex Jones, right? He's got some stuff that's way out there in left field. Does that mean we cancel and say everything he says is wrong? No. Right? Even these guys had stuff that was way out there, totally wrong, as we would see it today. Okay, but had we canceled these dudes and burned them at the stake or kicked them off and said no more salons for you, right? No more writing books. We had cut these people off. We would not have these great ideas that we now have today. Okay, so it goes all the way back to that freedom of speech. Not everyone's perfect. Not everyone gets it right. A lot of these guys were way out in the weeds for some of this stuff, but they also have some really, really, really good ideas that we can take and put into our society today. Again, freedom of speech. The bad ideas beat themselves out. The good ideas beat themselves out. Okay, there's our separation of powers. If you do not know how our separation of powers, does everyone know how this works in America? Your checks and balances. Okay. If you don't, there's a government class in the future you will have that will explain all of that. Okay, Voltaire, another French guy. It doesn't talk much about Voltaire's beliefs on society, but Voltaire was a very, very, very extremely influential man in this time. Okay, he was very high in the Parisian social circles. So what he wrote and put out, tons of people read. Again, very influential. He spent a bunch of time in England. He was fascinated by the English and what they did with their Civil War, how they took down their king. So he traveled to England. He wanted to go live in England and see what the English people were like, what their society was like, what was going on over there, learn some history from the people that were there. Fascinated with England. Also, this is in the time of Shakespeare. He loved Shakespeare. Taking notes and writing about Shakespeare and how Shakespeare was so revolutionary and all this other stuff. And again, very, very influential man. But when he starts writing papers about his social beliefs, England doesn't like that. Nope, get out. We don't want you here. Okay, so he goes back to France and does the rest of his writings in France. But again, the bigger thing about Voltaire is how influential he was. He was this big guy that was peddling all these ideas out. Loved Enlightenment ideas. Diderot. Okay, he creates the encyclopedia, not like we know it today. It wasn't like a big fat book of just everything that we know. Okay, this is actually the Encyclopédie. It's French, and it was more like a magazine or a newspaper or a pamphlet that he would put out. It was spreading new ideas about art, science, and government, religion, society. Okay, so he would take these Enlightenment ideas and put them into a magazine, print it out, and send it out to the people so the people could read it. Okay, Diderot was highly attacked. Okay, again, he's saying things that these institutions of power do not like. Okay, he criticizes the church, which still does have power, believe it or not, in French society. Okay, he criticizes the church, criticizing the government, the king, the legal system. Pretty much all of society is criticizing. Why are we doing this? Why do we live like this? Think about it. Use your brains here, people. We don't always have to live like this. Okay, so these two people are huge in spreading these ideas. Adam Smith believes in a new free market for business. Get government out of our market. The kings and queens should not be regulating what we can bring into this country, what we can take out, what has high prices, what has low prices. Government shouldn't be setting that kind of stuff. Much like ideas, the market will sort itself out. Crappy goods will get low prices. Well-built goods will get high prices. The market will figure it out. We don't need these prices established for us by the government. Let the market sort itself out. He's often known as the father of capitalism. Adam Smith is. He's the guy that really has that capitalist idea of let the market do its own. Adam Smith?
Yeah.
That's not this picture.
Okay, because that looks like
This guy, Adam Smith. This is a girl. Capitalism.
That's what we have today.
Yes, we have a free market society. His big quote was, laissez-faire. You ever hear laissez-faire? It means let it be. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Okay? It will figure itself out. That was the big theory on economics, business. Then you have Mary Wollstonecraft. Okay, she demands equal rights for women, and especially in regards to education. Okay, that is revolutionary for this time. Okay, in this day and age, an education is essential. You have to be well-spoken, well-written. You have to be educated to get into the rings of power. Obviously, there are not a lot of women in power here because they don't have the same access, they don't have the same rights to education that males do. Okay, so she says, before women can become anything in society, we need to have access to education. And beyond that, we should have equal rights, period. Again, this is the 1700s, okay? This is before women are equal to men in society. Way before. So again, this is a more revolutionary idea for the time. Again, it's something we're born into, we're used to, take for granted here in America, but it's not always been that way here across the world, and it's still not that way across the world in some areas. When did women in Saudi Arabia get their right to drive?
Like a year ago.
I think it was 2 years ago. I think it was 2018, 2019.
Well, I thought it was 2014.
I don't think it was that far ago. I think it was 18 or 19. Yeah, women finally just got the right to drive in Saudi Arabia.
I think it's without a male market.
Right. By themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. In some areas of the world, women are still not allowed to leave their house without a male chaperone. They're not allowed to answer the door or talk to anyone that comes to the door without their husband or brother or son being there, without the male being there. Yeah.
It says 27.
27? Okay, so it's years off. But what, 4 years now? Time flies. Okay, but yeah, there are still areas of the world where women don't have hardly any rights. Here in America, what year was America founded? Started?
1776.
1776. Okay, so think about that. 1776, when did women get the right to vote? Here in America.
Like the 1850s.
Not 1850s. 1919. Okay, so for 150 years of our country's existence, women were not allowed to vote. Roughly 150. What is that?
It's about half.
1776. Well, officially it became law. It was voted in 1919.
It's about half.
About half of our American history, women were not allowed to vote. Okay, so even that here in America is a more recent thing. Women in the early 1900s, not that they weren't allowed to drive, but they were expected not to drive when cars first started coming out. Well, they started coming out even before women started voting. The Model T was everywhere by then, by 1900. Okay, some changes that come from these Enlightenment ideas. Okay, some countries see these ideas, some leaders see these ideas and say, you know what, I kind of like these. One of them being King Frederick of Prussia. Okay, he really, really liked the ideas of Voltaire, and he establishes a system of elementary education for all children, girls and boys. What's up? How they what? No. No, they're changing for a good way. Where people enjoy this. Prussia doesn't follow that. Okay, but they established a system of elementary education for all children, yes, girls and boys. Girls have access to education now. Okay, he abolishes torture. Says, you know what? I really like this idea of natural rights. Okay, yes, we're all human beings. You guys have the right to not be tortured. Okay? Okay, and he supports most forms of religious tolerance. Again, I think before this, you're either strictly Catholic, you're strictly Protestant, you're strictly the Church of England, whatever you are, that's what your country is. Spain, that's the Inquisition. If you're not Catholic, get out. Or we're going to burn you at the stake. No, this is in Spain. Spain went 100% Catholic. If you're not Catholic, get out. Okay, so you have these countries that are 100% of whatever religion. Remember, Protestants, where was Protestant? Prussia. Russia was Protestant. Austria was Catholic. Again, you pick your religion of whatever you are, and that's what your country is. Okay, we're starting to change that. Saying, you know what? We can all get along. We signed a treaty that said we're not going to fight any more wars over this. Okay, I don't know why we're still holding on to this. Okay. Now, King Frederick lets everyone be there except for the Jewish people. The Jewish people, why throughout human history, have had a real rough go of it. Okay, Russia and Catherine. Catherine, inspired by the philosophies of Voltaire and Diderot, planned to reform. She had a plan in place to free her serfs. Okay. But ultimately, in the end, she doesn't enact that plan because she would have lost the support of the wealthy landowners, and that was pretty much the root of her power. Right? If the wealthy landowners had gone against her, she would have been ousted. Okay. But she really, really did like the ideas of Voltaire and Diderot and wanted to let her serfs go. What were serfs in Russia? What's another term for them?
Like a.
What's up?
I was gonna say like a slave, but not as bad. But
just like a quarter step above a slave. And these serfs are essentially slaves. And once you're born in the serf class, you have 0% chance of getting out of the serf class. You are 100% in that class for the rest of your life. Serfs were people who worked the land. That was their only job, from birth to death. You go work on a farm. You answer to the farm owner. You cannot leave that farm unless you go ask permission from the owner. You better come back. They'll hunt you down. They had some small freedoms. They were paid a small wage. They were allowed to keep their own farms. But really, honestly, if you look at it the way we see things, they were pretty much slaves. Okay, so she wanted to free these slaves in Russia. Just couldn't quite get it done because she would have been overthrown. There would have been all kinds of stink that comes about it. Right? That sounds a lot like where? What does that sound like? We would like to free the slaves, but we can't just do it yet. What's up?
here,
Here, America, right? The founding fathers, and even through all the way up until the Civil War, they tangled with this idea that in the Bill of Rights, right, every man is equal. Well, how is that possible if we have the slaves down there in the South? Okay, they knew it was a problem from the get-go. But they couldn't just say, okay, all the slaves are free. Because America would have fractured in a heartbeat. Okay, so it's kind of the same thing in Russia here. Now, Joseph here in Austria goes for it. He has the most radical changes. He eliminates torture and the death penalty. You have the right to your own life. You Even if you mess up, we're not going to kill you. He provides food and health care for his poor citizens. He grants religious tolerance to everyone, including Jews and Protestants. And he abolishes serfdom. Okay. Frees essentially his slaves. So Austria has the most radical change here. And you remember, not too long before this, Austria and Prussia had fought a war. Right? Protestant Prussians, Catholic, Austrians. Okay, so now they're saying, you know what, that's all right. Everyone's welcome. And because of these radical reforms that Joseph does in Austria, Vienna becomes one of the social capitals of Europe. It becomes a place where all the artists and all the musicians and all these people flock to. Okay, so again, lots of very important ideas in that, lots of things that we still struggle with today. How much freedom do we give up for safety? Do we give up freedom? What are our natural rights as people? What are our 3 inalienable rights here in America, as listed in the Bill of Rights? What 3 things are you absolutely guaranteed?
Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to bear arms.
Those are constitutional amendments, right? First, what's your first constitutional amendment?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. What's your second one?
Right to bear arms.
Right to bear arms. Your third one, we talked about that.
The quartering of troops.
Quartering of troops. Okay, those are your 3 constitutional rights. In the Bill of Rights, what are the 3 things you are absolutely guaranteed as a citizen of the United States?
Right for trial.
No.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You have a right to your life. You have a right to your freedom. You have the right to pursue happiness. Does that mean you're guaranteed happiness here in America? No.
No.
You have the right to pursue it. Go after it. Nobody should be able to hold you back for reasons of whatever it may be. We have laws against that now, right? Can't be discriminated because of sex, race, religion, creed, whatever it may be. What you believe, whatever your core belief may be. Wow, my mouse is so jacked up. Okay, so last thing we have here. You go to Canvas, you go to Enlightenment down here, Hobbes, Locke, Montesquieu. Montesquieu. Okay, first thing, open this worksheet. That'll have your questions on it, and then you just read these, readings here to do. Okay, one is on Hobbes and Locke. One thing I need to give you guys a disclaimer on as far as Hobbes and Locke goes. Okay, Hobbes, the eternal pessimist, did his writings during the English Civil War. Okay, so when that guy was experiencing what he was experiencing, obviously the English Civil War, very brutal. People did not like each other. Not a good time for England. Okay, so you got to take that into note. Hobbes grew up in a really, really tough time in England. He grew up, in the 7 Years' War. He survives the 7 Years' War. He watches their king get his head chopped off, and he's an eternal pessimist. Okay, people are mean and greedy, corrupt. Okay, and then you have John Locke. He's also from England, but he comes later in the history. John Locke was alive during the Glorious Revolution, where the people marched up to the king and said, "King, you are not doing your job." And the king said, "You know what? You're right. I will step down." Okay, so they come from 2 very different backgrounds. You have to understand that to understand their writings. And why Hobbes felt everyone was the eternal, he's the eternal pessimist on people, and Locke's the eternal optimist. They obviously 2 extremes there. It's probably more something in between, like Rousseau says. Right? Maybe you're born good and corrupted as you go on, corrupted by society. Okay, but you gotta understand that to really understand the difference between Hobbes and Locke and their thinking. So, you guys have a couple readings to do with this, some primary source documents of these guys' writings. You guys can work at partners if you want. Make sure you're staying on task. You've got 35 minutes. Should be able to get it done. Not have homework. So, if you would like to partner up, you can. I would prefer you don't list your own music on this. Okay? Kind of hard if you're trying to read primary source documents, you have Cardi B or Slipknot blasting in your ear. Okay. Whatever you may like, I don't know, but it's difficult to read when you have those kind of music playing in your head. So go ahead and partner up if you would like. Go for it. Rest of the time is yours. What's up? Yeah. What's up, Michael? Yeah. Also, this is in PDF format, so it will read it to you if you're like staunchly against reading for whatever reason. We will have it read it to you.
What?
It's a little bit more difficult reading.
What?
This is 1700s intelligent people writing these. Very well learned.
What?
We've made a transition in our music here. We went from the Baroque period of classical music to the classical era. The shift that happened about 1700, 1750. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm going to continue to play the music of the time.
Okay.
1700s and 1800s times are when you think of classical music. This is more when your Mozarts, your Beethovens, your big hitters. Headbangers. 1700s headbangers. Stinging their wigs off. Can you imagine that? What a second. The wigs flying all over the place. Holding their candles up.
Yeah.
They have flags back there, hold their candles up.
Yeah.
They don't like their
What a headbang.
smell their hair.
Heavily powdered. First your piece went powder, then started with fire.
I love the powder. There's a little powder out
I think it was like a baby powder kind of stuff.
Yeah. Even still.
Sure, it probably singed. I don't know if it burst in the flame.
Burning hair smells bad though.
So they had hairspray back then. They've been hairspraying their wigs. Torch it. Michael Jackson had his hair set on fire.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I'll go over that. Thank you for bringing it up.
You probably could flammable.
Hey guys, quickly, when you get to this second one with Montesquieu, I've got to go over this by that.
You're good.
Okay, it says, find as many of the following tenets, themes, okay, in the reading, and make a list of those quotes for each of these themes. Okay, so there's 3 themes. Human society is governed by natural laws. Those natural laws can be discovered by rational men, and human society can turn from traditional authoritarian forms and progress towards a more perfect government through rational thought. Okay, so as you're reading through Montesquieu's documents, you're like, you see a line, you're like, oh man, that falls under human society is governed by natural laws. Okay, copy that quote and paste it right here, boom. Okay, get at least 2 per. You should be able to get at least 2 per each one of these. So, read these first, make sure if you're working with a partner, have one person looking at these and then read through it together so you can be like, oh yeah, there's one, copy and paste. Okay, but yes, just copy and paste what would fall under those themes. Human society is governed by natural law. People can use rational logic to define what these natural laws are. So, yeah. Does that make sense, Dan?
Kind of. Or yeah.
Okay. Let me get stuck. Someone take it back. No. Was
Kaysen.
who is that?
Kaysen.
Mason, thank you. Right. So the problem is every class is letting 2 or 3 people go at a time. Faculty's gonna pile up. You know what I mean? Like I let 2 kids out, then Mr. Meyer lets 2 kids out. Just that's the end of it.
That's how.
It's yours, but I have no idea if it's not here. How was that South last year? Who? He wasn't here when I was here. Oh, 6 years. There's some teachers that have been here for 20 or more years. Bureau, Mr. Henry. Who else is still around? Mr. Solly. He's a senior English teacher. Ferdinand. Who's our linebackers coach? Oh, it is. Okay, go ahead.
Directly here.
Big one. I know, isn't that nice? Get a bunch of that spit right.
Yeah.
This mask is like frizzies on it, too. My nose.
Mask.
I bet you, sprained it.
Probably fine.
But you spraying
Yeah.
me?
Well, you might.
Not here.
Yeah.
In my car.
I'm sure
Got my old bag in there, all kinds of
you
stuff.
dealt with broken bones before.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Reach up to pretty much everything.
Not always break.
Although I can't treat anyone legally
yeah.
because I don't have a license. But
Yeah.
it's just hilarious to me because we do combat lifesaver training. You know, and we do it in country, but everything from like bullet wounds to amputation.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. Face smashed in.
Yeah.
We get training for everything. And so it's like guts spilling out.
And
Like, we know how to treat all that stuff, but we can't. Like, if I were to come up on a car crash in America, I can't treat the person legally because I don't have the certification.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
They give you the training, but you don't have the certificate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just every Marine before you go over, you take combat life.
Yeah.
So then there's even advanced ones that can go beyond that. It's
Yeah.
crazy the stuff they do there. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to fix you, but it'll be enough to get you to the hospital without dying.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
Battlefield,
Well, it's better
medical
than
stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, enough to stabilize you, enough to get you to somewhere where they can operate on you and big work.
Yeah.
It's the same thing paramedics and EMS. Communist rat.
So you're talking.
What's that?
You're talking. Right next to pretty quickly.
Wait, my stuff, you guys read that essay?
No.
Maybe that's what I'll do for final paper.
What?
Instead of a final test, we'll do a final essay.
No.
Discussing the major changes in history that have brought us to where we are.
If you want to pick a time period, I'd be out there.
4 pages.
People mad with power. Let's go run about.
4 pages.
Let us
People
know.
mad with power.
I won't mention any names about big people mad with power.
Want us to pick a time period? I'm down.
Oh, we gotta do the whole thing.
2020.
Italian Renaissance up until present.
I'll take it.
I mean, I can do it.
I don't think 4 pages is enough. I think you need 8 pages for that.
Oh, jeez.
To be able to fit all that in.
I mean, you could go and split it up into 4 parts. And do 1 page each. So, you always need to take extra small fonts.
12 point.
That was my final. Alright. Wait, how much time do we get to work on this?
Who kidding?
Oh, you should have seen it.
I know. I haven't signed out that far yet. It's still a long way away.
Yeah.
Kind of depends on how much time it takes us to get through our standards and like everything that we need to get through. So I push it up until the very last day and it just becomes final test, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we had like a week early. That's it.
Yeah.
Rational?
I mean,
There are. But in this time frame, it's tough. using logic. Systematic way of thinking.
I like that. See. Yeah, I think everyone.
Yes.
From either the window or yeah, so the electric car actually pretty sure
They say it here one. They say it here.
they're electric
It's been a little. You You still have it open?
No. No.
That's what you should.
No.
But you put the link in the text box?
No, just think about this.
Then go to SharePoint or OneDrive?
You
that's
run
what it
everything you're taking on by using the band to not be very bad. But putting it in
You just save it to your computer. You know where you save it?
to my other classes, never made
Yeah, the right spot.
at least in my old school they had my class the other had
You
a
have
county
to
test. Yeah, so I could just take that class and fill my life. So it went over learning how to find it. What makes web work HTML language or but it's not fine. Software theater.
But it's gonna save it. Autos.
Yeah.
Cloud.
Word. Then a little. Yeah.
So do this. So that copy and paste. Just copy and paste that. For whatever reason, those SharePoints don't, I can't access them.
Oh, I'm gonna say silly. Much possible. I'm gonna say judge. What's the same time you want to fuck? That's pretty much fine. Getting plain from black. one sale. And I said, I was like, hey, I wanted to, and